Good evening, everybody. Welcome in to another Big Men on Campus preview and podcast. I'm your host, the Big Men on Campus. Tonight, we're taking a look at the Sweet 16 coming up Thursday, March 28th and Friday, March 29th. We will have just 8 teams left after this weekend. So I'm looking forward to getting into all the games, hoping to find some great value, and I welcome you in. Barstool Reegs will join us in just a second. Reegs came on for the round of 64. That was fun, but now it's getting down into the nitty-gritty. Welcome in. Make sure you hit the like button and make sure you comment. Chat box is open for business, so come in, say hello, and make your opinion heard. What games are you looking at? What games do you have your eye on? Make sure you come on and let us know. Always a fun time to have plenty of great people on the chat box. Before we get into it, do want to mention to everybody, make sure you're taking a look at my bookie. If you're needing a book, you're looking for a book, you're trying to add on, make sure you check out my bookie. Plenty of great things to bet on, including the Sweet 16. Make sure you get in the game now and get in the game. Joining my bookie, use promo code BMOC. You can get yourself a 50% deposit bonus. Keyword promo code BMOC, mybookie.ag. Get in the game now and support the show. I hope everyone's having a great Wednesday evening. Really looking forward to the Sweet 16. It's a great time of the year. We got baseball getting going Thursday as well. A lot of great things to dip our toes into, and I'm looking forward to these games. Obviously, plenty of great, high-level basketball teams. You look at in this field, just one seed above a 5 seed. I'm looking forward to breaking you all down with one of our favorite people. He's from Barstool Sports. He's a great college basketball blogger. It's our friend Reegs. Reegs, how you doing?
Good, man. What's going on?
Good to have you, man. Obviously, before we get into this, I mean, can you ask for any better matchups? I mean, seriously, Reegs. I mean, I know a lot of us would have loved to have seen Duke lose or whatever, but what a great group of 16 teams here.
Yeah, so I talk about this quite a bit. Like, obviously this year kind of talk about it even more, but I've talked about this quite a bit over the last few years of the NCAA tournament just in general, right? Like, we love upsets. I say we, America loves upsets, right? Like, let's be honest, casual fan, nothing more than NCAA tournament for them, right? So they love the upsets early because it's fun. You get behind that small school. It's always a great story. They're easier to cheer for, but America doesn't want upsets later. No. So you want that good blend, which we honestly got this year. It just wasn't close games, which is what sucked. Like, if we had close games, that first weekend would have been epic, right? Like, because you had the upsets. You had 3 12 seeds win. You had a 13 seed. You had an 11 seed. All 9, like, there was enough upsets out there to where everyone would have been happy. It's just everyone got their ass kicked. So the fact that we now have these blue bloods in the Sweet 16, and I mean, we have the bluest of blue bloods playing outside of Kansas. You couldn't ask for a better Sweet 16.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Yeah, I've talked about that. I mean, it's nice to see an upset once or, a few times, in the round of 64.
You don't want Butler VCU again in the Final Four.
No.
Like, it's a great story. It's a great story, but ratings say otherwise. Like, there's a reason, like, the 2015 Final Four was epic and so well watched. It's the fact that it was, and sure, undefeated Kentucky helps too, but it was Kentucky, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Duke. 3 blue bloods and a consistent program in Wisconsin.
And the problem with these, mid-majors is eventually they're going to face a team that just whitewashes them. We saw it last year, in the Final Four. I mean, Loyola was a great story, and they had the Sister Jean and all that crap. But, you knew eventually they were going to get their ass kicked. I mean, it's that simple.
The thing that helped was they were winning close games. So it kind of deterred it, and they're beating major programs, which also helped. Because the fear is then you end up with, the Sweet 16 game where it's I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's just say UC Irvine would have won, and let's say, I don't know, who else could have came out of that pod that would have matched up where you're just like, we have interest in that, but America is just kind of like, I don't even care about this game.
Yeah, it would have been if, let's say, New Mexico State Northeastern won,
Yeah,
or something like that. It's all cool and on for guys like you and I. It's it's a cool matchup. Sometimes you'll get the really good offensive team against that really good mid major that can maybe defend. But yeah, I mean, eventually it's all cool. But sooner or later you want to see all the big boys.
It's the fact that, and throw in the fact that. What's even better is every Elite Eight possible matchup is intriguing now.
Yeah, sure. No,
so 100%.
I mean,
you can make. It's like somebody asked me today in the mailbag that I posted. A question I had was, "What Elite Eight matchups do you want to see?" And it's like, well, from my personal cheering perspective, and then from what I think the best games would be. So I kind of gave a couple examples, and when I was thinking about it, I was like, you really can't go wrong with
all of them. Sure. No, I think as long as I would prefer to not see Oregon, but I mean, Oregon's playing some great basketball right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I would love to see, I want Virginia in the Final Four because I want people to start talking about Virginia the way that we should be talking about them. Yeah. And they've been one of the 2-3 best teams in the country all year. So I want to feel like they redeemed themselves from last year. But Oregon's been playing. I mean, it's hard to argue with what they're doing. So it's one of those, if Oregon wins, you feel a little, underwhelming because it's like, all right, well, we lost a 1 seed. We lost one of the more consistent programs. But Oregon would then have won 12 out of 13 with that win or something like that. So it's like, how can you still have a big, well-known program in Oregon versus either Purdue or Tennessee?
Before we get into some of these games, I wanted to ask you, because I've relished and talked about just watching Virginia and how I think it's pretty, and this is kind of a weird word to use, but it's sexy to watch them defend. They play at such a high level defensively that it's just beautiful. It's special. It's cool to watch. You have to agree, Riggs, seeing that over, a team like Auburn or a team that can get hot from three. I mean, you have to feel that. A great defense team. There's just something beautiful about that.
I don't know, man. Listen, my playing days, I was a defensive-minded guard first and a pass first point guard. So I have something to that. But at the same time, just think about Villanova last year. What was prettier than that?
That's true. That's a good point. I mean, we'll see, Gonzaga or, like you said, Villanova might have been one of the best offensive teams in the history of basketball last year. I mean, that was pretty unbelievable. But Riggs, let's get into some of these games. Obviously, we'll start with tomorrow's action. First game out of the gate, Gonzaga and Florida State. Gonzaga laying 7.5. You look at the total in this game. It's hanging about 146.5 if you want a 147. If you like it under, there's plenty of those numbers available as well. You look at this game. Obviously, revenge for Gonzaga. They were beaten up last year. We all know it. 75-60 in that game. Look, we don't have to go through stats, Riggs. We all know that Gonzaga is very good offensively, number one in offensive efficiency. I'm looking at this total and saying to myself, Riggs, look, I think the tempo is going to be there. Both these teams pretty good from an adjusted tempo standpoint. They both go pretty deep. They both have good front lines. And I think that obviously no Phil Kofer will hurt, but they still have plenty of depth where it really won't matter. My thing is, can Gonzaga defensively do at Florida State? Because we saw against Murray, very good from three, 11 for 27. I'm looking at this total a little bit and saying, I feel like this game can get to the mid-70s. Sidewise, seems like too many points, but I also think it seems like a goat, like where you say, oh, I don't know, it seems like too many points. Florida State has all these athletes, but we've seen time and time again over the years, Gonzaga, being able to take care of these kind of teams. But this Florida State team's a tough matchup for them from a length perspective. I kind of like the over. I don't love this game from a side perspective. What do you like here? Anything?
I actually really like Florida State with the points. I may get a little advantageous and throw a little bit on the money line just because of the matchup and the fact that it's weird matchups on both sides, right? So, Chris Kamaji is 7'4". Gonzaga is nobody that can obviously match up with that size-wise. But on the flip side, they're just going to put him in a bunch of ball screens. So do they play him off the floor, essentially? I'm interested to see how much Kamaji plays. And then you look, Cabanelli is a hell of a player. But Brandon Clark, from my book, is the best defensive player in the country. So I think that Clark can kind of –
Wow, better than Hunter, really?
I think Brandon Clark's the best defender in the country, yeah. It's close, but I think it's Brandon Clark.
Sure.
but him versus Cabanelli is going to be an awesome matchup. And I think that's one to keep an eye on. Cabanelli can kind of get going, then Gonzaga's in trouble. If Clark shuts him down, then Florida State's in trouble. On the other side, Josh Perkins is a good point guard. Don't get really like he's having a hell of a year, good point guard. Last year, we saw this happen in this game. We saw it happen in the St. Mary's game.
He kind of wields Riggs under pressure, doesn't he?
It depends what Josh Perkins shows up. There are times where he not wheels under pressure or anything like that, but the press can kind of bother him, and he can be turnover prone at times. If that doesn't happen, because Florida State's going to throw that length at him and throw that press at him, and if he's able to take care of the ball and beat it by getting the ball to like a Tilly and Rui and kind of let them go from there, or if he can just kind of handle himself, then Gonzaga wins easily. But 7.5 is a lot. I like Florida State with the points there.
Yeah, I think it just seems like too many. I mean, we've seen this Gonzaga team obviously struggle with some of the length they played, the UNCs, the Tennessees. Look, it just seems to me when Josh Perkins plays in some of these big games, you make a good point. The press bothers him. Pressure bothers him. I'm going to go over the number. I think this finds a way over. I think Gonzaga will have plenty of success. We know they're just going to score. That's what they do. I like what I saw from Florida State from 3. I will say this as well. The concern you have for Florida State is eventually Leonard Hamilton is going to do something stupid to screw himself up and screw this team up. What do you think of Leonard Hamilton, Riggs?
I like him.
From a game perspective, not from a –
Yeah, I think he's good. I think he's a little bit underrated.
But against Mark Few, it's not even close.
I mean, Mark Few, he's one of the 10 best coaches in the country. But Hamilton's a bit underrated, I think, because people remember his mistakes more than anything else. But if you look at what he's been able to do at Florida State, which it's not – I mean, it's not a huge basketball school, right? Like, he's kind of turned it into a successful program. Like, they're doing what they should of make some tournaments. They consistently kind of get there. He has now 3 Sweet 16s, an Elite 8 under his belt. Obviously, the upset, when they lost to Xavier back in 2017 as a 3 seed. I still like him, though, because it's a weird scenario. Like, I almost wonder if you took a different job at some point, if we'd view him a little differently. But I think he's fine. I fall more into the fact of him being a little bit underrated than anything else. But again, like Mark Few's a top 10 coach in the country. So the coaching advantage definitely goes to Gonzaga here.
Tennessee taking on Purdue. Tennessee 1.5 total, 146.5. Look, I probably would think, Riggs, you're going to be on the opposite side here. I'm going Purdue. I'm taking Purdue here. You know Tennessee well. You watch them. You're a Kentucky guy. You know all these teams pretty well. But I've seen this Tennessee team. I've not been a big fan of this group all year. I think they have some issues defensively that could be magnified in this game. Matt Painter, Purdue, love to use all those screens and really good in the half court. I look at the way Tennessee defends at times. I have concerns against them just allowing shooters to run wild on the perimeter. Carson Edwards is playing at a really high level. I think defensively for Purdue, Eastern can go out and guard some of these big boys for Tennessee. I like the way Harms is playing. And look, I think Purdue's pretty used to these physical big front courts. I think they can match up here. The only concern I have is I'm only getting 1.5 points. I wish I was getting 3 or 3.5. Obviously, sharp money going to be on Purdue here. Public loves Tennessee, but we haven't seen a huge move, really. We don't see it about a point. We're interested to see where this line goes by tip-off. I'm taking Purdue. I think it's a pretty decent matchup. I like the way Carson Edwards is playing. He seems like one of those guys right now that's just kind of building up one of those Kemba Walker-type runs a little bit here. I'm going to take Purdue. I think they could score against this really poor at times Tennessee defense. I like the over a little bit too. What do you like here, Riggs?
Yeah, I really like the over, actually. Neither team defends the three-point line well. Like, if you look at the KenPom numbers, Tennessee is 232nd in three-point attempts per field goal attempts, and teams score 65% of their 35.5% of their points from the three-point line. Purdue is 43.5% three-point attempt per field goal attempt defensively, and teams score 36.6%. So those are big numbers. For conceptual sake, Purdue's rank is 316th in three-point attempt per field goal attempt defense, and Tennessee's is 232nd point distribution from opponents, 65th for Tennessee, 43rd for Purdue. Those are from the most. So I like the over here because there's going to be a mismatch on each side. I do think Tennessee's defense is, it's fine this year, but it's a huge step down from where it was last year. For Purdue, I think Eastern is probably the answer to put on Grant Williams or Admiral Schofield, but who guards the other?
Yeah, good point.
I'm assuming it's going to be Eifert to start.
Boudreaux, maybe?
Yeah, Boudreaux's going to have to get some minutes. Travion Williams is probably going to have to get some minutes there. It's weird. There's a mismatch kind of everywhere you look from that standpoint. So I think the over's a play because I keep going back and forth. When the line opened on Sunday night, I was like all over Tennessee in my mind. I was like 1.5. That seems low. Tennessee, they just make sense. They just have to shut down Carson Edwards. Was my dumb brain thought right away. Then I kind of looked into it more and was like, wait a minute, there's more here to it. I forget, I was on with Doster and Vicini earlier today, and Doster looked up the stats, and I don't remember it off the top of my head, but on his podcast on College Basketball Talk, he mentioned he looked at what Carson Edwards' usage rate and shooting percentage was when Purdue during Big Ten play won for a stretch, and it was high usage rate, bad shooting percentage, and Purdue didn't lose during that time. So that whole concept of shut down Carson Edwards, you'll automatically win, was kind of proven false, which was kind of jarring to see because that was kind of what everyone kind of thought about. So I think the over is the play. I'm torn on what side to go to. I go back and forth. It's Matt Painter has never gotten out of the Sweet 16, and something like Rick Barnes is something like 9-1 in his last 10 NCAA tournament against the spread.
Yep.
So Painter's never got out of the Sweet 16. So it's which one is it going to be? I don't want to choose a side in this game.
Yeah, look, I think the over is interesting here because I thought we'd see a total more towards 149-ish. It hasn't moved much. We've just sat at 146.5. I thought it was low to begin with. I think both these defenses are going to have struggles. I mean, Tennessee can become a little discombobulated, especially against that three-point shot. Klein's been very good for them. We all know what Edwards can do.
I mean, just look at the tournament so far. You've had two really good halves defensively for Tennessee. The first half against Iowa, first half against Colgate, and the second half against Colgate and Iowa had been not great. So it's which one shows up?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think giving Painter, a good amount of time to prepare for this, that offense that he runs, it's really good. Wizardry, really. I like the opportunity for Purdue. But I think you're on to something here with the over as well. I think both plays are solid. I think slightly the over is looking more and more like a great play here. I just wish it was getting a few more points at Purdue. If I'm getting 3 here, I'm all into it. I'm all in.
I'm surprised the line really hasn't moved either. It stayed at that 1.5.
I'll tell you what, it'll be interesting to see if, again, we have a lot of money in these games, a lot of bets coming in. You look at this game currently, almost 8,000 bets. I'm sure by tip you're going to see 15,000, 17,000. So, plenty of bets coming in here. I'll lean over. Next one, Oregon, Virginia. Virginia laying 8.5, total 119.5. 62% of the tickets coming in on Virginia, 70% of the money. Players liking Oregon. Let me say this though, and I'd be interested to hear your point, Reeves. I know you love Virginia. You like Virginia. You want to see them get to the Final Four, and I agree with you. I like the way Oregon's playing. I don't think anyone will disagree with it. Again, no one that they've beaten is anywhere near what Virginia is, and let's be honest. You beat Irvine. That's just a bad matchup. Irvine was going to run out of gas. All due respect to Wisconsin, I don't think it was the year we thought we'd see from them. Pac-12 is hideous. I like what Tony Bennett did, Riggs, with Diakite. I think it's going to provide important in this game with Wooten and Paul White and some of the bigs here. Diakite can go out and guard those guys, unlike Jack Salt. I'll be interested to hear your opinion on Clark against Peyton Pritchard, who's having a great tournament, a great run here. Again, I just think this is one of those things where Oregon just runs into a buzzsaw. I had a Virginia against Oklahoma. I liked the matchup there. They were able to find a way to get the job done. First, I ask you, how does Oregon score in the half court? Second of all, why is this line only 8.5? I thought it was a bit low, frankly.
Yeah, I had Virginia against Oklahoma too, and that was a sweat down the end when I didn't think it was.
But you would agree though. I mean, Kyle Guy didn't play well at all.
Yeah, they jumped out to that early lead, and I was like, okay, this should be an easy, comfortable 18 to 20 point game.
Sure.
Instead of that, it was just an easy, comfortable 9 to 13 the entire time, and it was like, all right, here we go down the stretch. Which the way my week went last week, I was like, it's just gonna fall inside. It's gonna be a 9. You ask how Oregon's going to score in this game. I actually really like the over in this game, which is crazy to say in a Virginia-Oregon game. But Oregon has somewhat of – if you look at teams that have been able to score against Virginia, they kind of have those perimeter wing-type players. They don't so what I'm trying to – I guess basic term. They don't play two bigs. Right, so Oregon, they don't play two bigs. They play Kenny Wooten, and then you look at Louis King. Paul White is a perimeter. He's not a wing, but he's a perimeter-based kind of stretch player. Peyton Pritchard, obviously, Ehab Amin. So that's the best way to score on Virginia is to not play that too big lineup, which Oregon doesn't do. So right there feels like, okay, I'm a little bit comfortable with that. On the flip side, Virginia, they kind of have the perfect mix to beat a zone. Look what they did against Syracuse at the Carrier Dome. What was that, 17 for 23 from the three-point line or something like that? What I expect them to do is, because Oregon runs that kind of three-quarters court press that drops into a matchup zone, they'll flash DeAndre Hunter into the middle. They have two sharpshooters in Guy and Jerome who can just shoot the hell out of the ball. I expect to see a lot more Jay Huff than we have. A 7-1 guy that can really shoot the ball. I don't know how much Clark's going to play in this. I think you'll see a little bit more Braxton Key and kind of those lineups of Key, Hunter, Jerome, Guy, Huff, or Diakite, kind of that being your 6. I see Tony Bennett really using.
What do you think? Maybe Clark's a bit undersized here. You got to put Key in a little bit more.
Yeah, a little bit undersized. I would let Jerome kind of work on Peyton Pritchard a bit more, or Kyle Guy. However you want to match up. I don't know how they're going to match up. Cross match with Guy and Jerome and Amin and Pritchard. Or Bailey, I guess, too. It depends, I guess, on the matchups. They're kind of weird in that sense. But Clark also, he's not a great shooter this year. I think Virginia's better with Key in there. But Clark's definitely going to play some minutes. As for what he can do for Pritchard, he can kind of be a nuisance. Just kind of get up in him and just make him work for, almost just try to tire him out. He's not going to obviously press a whole lot, but you can kind of put him in that one-man press three-quarters court and just make Pritchard just use legs and energy. Because if you can kind of cut off, almost the old cut the snake off by the head type deal, cut Peyton Pritchard off, get him tired and legs, make him work defensively, and then on the other side of the ball, you're going to take 28 seconds, make him play defense. That's that. But I like the over. I think Virginia can really shoot. I don't think Virginia can really shoot the ball. I think they're made to kind of attack a zone with Hunter in the middle, or you can flash even like a Jay Huff in the middle, or you can flash. They have so many options, man. They just shoot the hell out of the ball. And you look at, I brought it up with Purdue and Tennessee. Oregon's defense, 3-point defense, they allow a look from 3 on almost 50% of possessions, and teams are shooting. Their teams are scoring, 33.5% of their points from the 3-point line? Well, that's in the Pac-12, which isn't a great shooting conference. If you're going to let Virginia shoot 46% of the time of possessions from the 3-point line, I kind of trust that lineup.
Another interesting total here. This seems to me like a total that you would have gave Virginia last year. With the improved offense, with how good they've been from three, I agree with you. And the markets agree with you. I mean, this one opened 118. It's up to 119.5. This seems to me like it's like 71-56. I think this is kind of where I would have put it. I would place it. I thought 118 was a bit low. I would have put that maybe last year when Virginia kind of had issues at times offensively. But this year, I just think they're too good to not put up. I think if they can get to 70, I think this game will fly over.
I'm assuming they're just kind of banking on the slower tempo and missing shots more than anything else. But sure. I mean, hell yeah, like all it takes is if Virginia gets to 70, I don't know how it doesn't go over.
Yeah, no, sure. You just got to hope that they don't give out one of those really unbelievable patented defensive performances they can do where they only give up 51, or 50 or.
But still, if you get to 70, that's a win.
Sure, no, right, it's right there. Sure, if you get to 70, that's what you got to hope for. If you get to 70, it's going to go over.
But if you just look at kind of teams, not similar to Oregon, but like Syracuse was 79-53.
Sure. Yeah.
You look at. Miami was 58-46. That's a little low. I'm just trying to look at teams somewhat similar. Dayton was 66-59. That was earlier in the year.
I think they surely hit 70. I really do. I think you described it perfectly with how, I think they can shoot against the zone. I think the Syracuse game's a pretty terrific, comparison, really.
Yeah. I like the – like I said, I like the over in that one.
Perfect. One more for the Thursday card, Texas Tech. And Michigan should be a great one here. Michigan up to 2. This was at 1.5. It opened 2. It was at 1.5 for a little bit. Now it's back to 2 as we speak here. Another low total at 126. Look, I love Texas Tech. I think Chris Beard is as good as it gets. I mean, we can mention John Beilein in March because let's be honest. I mean, he's very good in March. But look, Chris Beard's pretty damn good himself. Again, Riggs, I'm not going to offer up a ton of really, basketball type things here with this game. I just look at Texas Tech. I think they're overly slightly better. I don't love anything Michigan does on offense. I think defensively, if Jared Culver can kind of do what he wants to do in this game, I think at the rim, they can do a lot of good things. I've talked about with Texas Tech, and this is going to sound crazy, and you might think I'm nuts, but I feel like when they really play well and they play really well defensively, Odiase is a bit of a factor. And I think he's going to be a factor in this game. We all know what John Teske and Brazdeikis can do. Now, I know Brazdeikis on the perimeter is a bad matchup for anyone, but Odiase, it seems like when he plays really well, they play really well. They're an interesting team because we've seen Mooney kind of go out and be inconsistent at times, but I love the way they're playing right now. Defensive, we all know they're both incredible. But Michigan does give up a lot as far as 2-point scoring rate. I think they're the highest in the country, if I'm correct. I just don't see that Derek Walton, kind of player for this team. I love Simpson. He's great and everything, but we've seen him make a lot of circus shots you have to figure aren't going to work against this terrific defense. I just think slightly Texas Tech's the better team. I know Michigan's the favorite here, but I think deep down – when it comes down to it, I think Texas Tech's a better team. Michigan getting a lot of respect because of who they are in March. What do you like here, Reed?
I hate this game from almost every standpoint because they're so similar. But
Culver's the best player in the court, Breaks.
Right. So I do like Texas Tech money line is what I would end up playing. Maybe the under, just because of how damn good both these defenses are.
It's a bit high, isn't it? You have to feel like 1 to 60 wins, right?
You would think, but
like again, 61, 57 or something?
You're also giving Beilein a week to prepare in Beilein's offense, which I know it's inconsistent this year, but it's still Beilein and giving him, 5 days to prepare, 4 days to prepare?
Yeah.
That's the one fear here. But the reason I like Texas Tech is the fact that they can go small. They can run, they can match with what Michigan wants and can do of running Matthews at the 4 because you can move Culver to the 4. And you can play, a Francis and Odiase. You can run like a Francis, Odiase, Culver, Mooney, Moretti lineup, or Corpu, and there's enough out there. And I like Texas Tech, man. There's something about this team. There's something about this team.
No, I couldn't agree more. I can never really put my finger on it, and maybe it's just my weird obsession with Beard. I think he's fantastic. I really do, and. Look, I think just deep down, Michigan's great and all. I'm not going to say they aren't, but I just don't feel it with them this year. I don't see that team that we've seen. I don't see the same magic. But we'll see. They also really struggle getting to the free throw line. I think that's kind of one of the reasons they can go real cold at times. They really don't have the ability to kind of get in and get to the foul line. They're not a great free throw shooting team either.
That's the other weird thing about this matchup is like the weaknesses and strengths kind of offset each other. So you mentioned Michigan doesn't get to the free throw line a lot. Texas Tech fouls a ton.
Yeah, true.
Michigan is a terrible offensive rebounding team. Yeah. Texas Tech is below average defensive rebounding team. Texas Tech turns the ball or forces you to turn the ball over a ton. Michigan doesn't turn the ball over.
I think
there's not one of those things that you can point at like we do in other matchups and say, well, whoever kind of wins this one individual thing, you feel pretty good about.
I think you did say that though. I think you said, and I think you made a great point. They can go small. I think the bench is a little bit better for Tech. I mean, you're really getting 6 deep for Michigan, and that's even a stretch. You like what Francis can do. Kyler Edwards can give you something. Corpu, as you said. I mean, it's not a huge advantage, but I think you get the ability to go small. I think they're better offensively. They have the best player on the court. I think that's enough to make them the play in this game.
I agree, too. It's ultimately, for me, it comes down to I trust Texas Tech's offense to not be as inconsistent as Michigan's offense.
Sure.
In a one-game scenario.
Great point. 100% agree. Let's head over to Friday, and then we will wrap it up. Only 8 games, obviously. We started out with LSU, Michigan State. What a fascinating game this is going to be. And I have one reason why I'm not playing this game, and I'm going to tell you why in just a second. Michigan State 6, total 148.5. Look, I've not been a huge LSU guy. I know you've been a bit more interested than I am, but I think in this game, I like the matchup for the Tigers. I think you just look at Michigan State; they're kind of a wounded dog, aren't they? I mean, while they are, but they keep winning. But it's going to at some point get to them. I mean, Cassius Winston's been great, but I think he's a little banged up. Nick Ward's still not playing a huge amount of minutes. You have to figure he's going to get a lot more in this game, though. But I love that front court: Bigby Williams, Naz Reid, Days, all those guys. Really physical. We know what Nick or what Tom is going to do. He's probably going to slow this game down, make LSU play at a different pace. I have one reason I'm not on LSU. First of all, I'd like to get 7, and I'm not going to get it. Second of all, I just don't trust Benford. I don't. It's that simple. If Will Wade was coaching, I'd have a different opinion on it. I think Michigan State will find a way to win. I think LSU will find a way to cover, but I'm not really interested in Benford. I think he has the ability for them to lose this game.
So it's real interesting because it's ultimately what it comes down to, right? Talent versus coaching. Because like Michigan State has the best college player on the floor in Cassius Winston, but players like 2 through 7 might be LSU.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe not 2 through 7 because
outside of Warden,
probably in there, but
McQuaid's played well and everything.
Yeah, but
all those guys for LSU have been terrific.
Right, but from a talent perspective, 2 through 7 might be LSU.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sure.
But the coaching standpoint, it's a huge match with Tom Izzo, who's obviously an all-timer versus an interim head coach.
Where would you compare that? So Tom Izzo's like your blue blood. Would Benford be like IUPUI, or is he like really low? Like
no. He's not that. He's not that low.
Where would you seed him from a Ken Palm ranking standpoint?
I'm trying to think of in terms of like an NCAA tournament standpoint. He would be like the
maybe.
I'm trying to think like because he's been at least at some big places.
Like an NIT team, maybe.
I
mean, he's not really succeeded really anywhere.
Yeah, but he's like at North Texas. How much can you really succeed there? Type place.
True.
I don't know. He's probably like a 14 seed.
Okay, that's interesting.
That could maybe get a win. Like this might be like the second round win. This is like when the Ivy League 14 seed gets a win. Like when Yale beat Baylor.
Is he like a Norfolk State beat Missouri kind of guy?
He's a little bit above that. He's Yale beating Baylor.
But it's a huge discrepancy as we know comparing.
Right, especially when we're talking about Izzo, who's an all-timer, obviously.
Right.
So my fear is like we've seen it happen a few times with LSU since Wade left. They got up, they get out to an incredible start. They look great. then some adjustments are made and they kind of panic a little bit because the coaching staff is still trying to figure out their roles too. Like that's a huge thing. It's not just like a Binford thing. It's the fact that they actually have to figure out their roles as now, a new – everyone slides down a chair, which is – it's honest to God, a true thing that you have to worry about on that coaching staff. So I think LSU first half is a good play. I do like LSU for the game, and I kind of like LSU money line just because I trust talent here. And this is one of those where I'm also just kind of banking on off the court stuff. LSU just feels like that team of destiny, right? Like Wade Sims shot and killed before the season.
Yeah,
you kind of have the 6-man whole thing scenario playing out. Then you have the Will Wade situation. So it's just like it almost feels like it's a team of destiny type.
It's kind of like Michigan the other year when they had the plane issue.
Right. So I mean, you have obviously the horrific tragedy of Sims,
sure,
and then everything going on with Will Wade, and honestly, like the players couldn't have handled it any better in both scenarios, right? Like they haven't bitched and moaned about anything. They just go out and
fortitude's been there. I have to give it to LSU. I've had kind of a love-hate relationship with this group at times, and mainly it's just been me betting against them because I see good spots. But the mental fortitude and the makeup of the team has been very good. I mean, you haven't had anyone, even like when Javonte Smart was out. I mean, you didn't really hear much. He kind of just did what he had to do. And should he be back playing? I mean,
why not?
I mean, he is involved with an active investigation, which
force NCAA to say no.
Sure. And look, I guess I was just kind of comparing it to every other player that was involved. I mean, can you answer a question? Why didn't Sylvia DeSouza get to play then? Because
the NCAA held him out. Like there was an eligibility with NCAA that LSU cleared, or like Javonte Smart's been cleared by LSU, which
I find
it's cleared.
It's a school thing, I guess, but
I mean, there could be not enough information with Smart yet, or there could, who knows? I'm assuming there's something there.
But either way, they've handled it, like as you said, very well. I mean, when you have a team like this, we all know how close these kids are. I mean, you lose a player, and not only even when he was killed, for God's sakes. I mean, that's heavy stuff. And
it was right before the season started too. It was late September.
Yeah, sure. No, you make a real good point. That's some, again, the fortitude's there. I will say this, though, Riggs. You look at this total, 148.5. It's come down a little bit from 150. Obviously, we have to figure Tom is going to slow the pace here a little bit. But, I mean, we can agree. I mean, maybe other than Auburn, I mean, LSU's defense is a lot to be desired. I mean, there's not a lot of – it's not very good, let's be honest. And Michigan State's going to score it. Is 148 – I feel like this is like 80-74 or something.
I don't know. I don't really like the total in this game. Both teams – what's weird is both teams are really good offensive rebounding teams, but like LSU's kind of terrible defensively on the defensive glass. Michigan State is a decent defensive rebounding team, but we've seen them kind of struggle with that. So are there going to be extra possessions, some free points just on quick rebounds and putbacks? There's too much there from a possession standpoint for me to kind of wonder about the total. But I like LSU. Again, it almost feels like the Florida State thing where is 6 points too much to make up for talent versus coaching?
I agree. I hear you. I agree. The only thing that's keeping me off this one is Benford, really. But LSU's really seemed to answer the call against every good defensive team they played. I mean, you look even back to Houston. I know that they lost against Houston, but they put up 76. I mean, you put up some big numbers against some good defensive teams all year. I'll agree with Riggs, but I'm not playing this one. I just want to stay off of Benford. Next one, Auburn, North Carolina. This one's pretty simple for me. Look, Auburn was impressive the other night, but they're just so one-dimensional. It's really hard to really kind of have any interest in them, especially against a team like this. We know this is going to be a run-and-gun crazy match. We're going to see a ton of points in this game. I will say I think the total is just getting kind of too high at this point. I mean, this is an NCAA tournament game. It's a Sweet 16 game. I mean, 164.5, 165 is high. I mean, 82-78 is a loser. I mean, 82-80 is a loser. It's getting very high. I'm not going to bet under because I know what I'm kind of getting into. We're dealing with two really high-paced teams that love to play and love to shoot. But, Riggs, we know one thing about Auburn. They're about as one-dimensional as it gets on offense. 7th in the country in point distribution from the 3-point line. They really just get nothing really anywhere else in the court. They're really one-dimensional. But again, that goes in the line of saying if they can shoot 14 for 23 from three, they're going to win this game. You're really banking on can Carolina defend the 3-point line at a high level. You have plenty of time to repair. They were actually pretty good against the 3 all season. That's been one of the real takeaways from this group this year. I thought Roy Williams has done a real good job at times from a coaching standpoint day to day. You also look at how good this team's been on defense. It's really been impressive. They don't turn the ball over, which is helpful against Auburn. It just seems like a real bad matchup. Carolina flying under the radar. I think they get the job done here by double digits. What are your thoughts?
I don't really want to touch this game a whole lot because Kobe White has been phenomenal this year, but we've seen him against like Ashton Hagans, against Trey Jones, and even a little bit in, I'm trying to remember what other game it was there, where Xavier Simpson and Quan Ford, that was one in Louisville. Guards that can kind of get up in you and bother you a little bit. He's had kind of heavy turnovers in those games. And Jared Harper can do just that. And Auburn's defense is predicated on forcing turnovers. So it's one of those where I could see Auburn potentially disrupting Kobe White and forcing turnovers. On the flip side, I could also see Kobe White just having a hell of a game, just running up and down the court. I like the under. We saw early, I know this was early in the season, but we saw something similar with Duke and Auburn in Maui, where Auburn just kind of slowed it down and tried to play like Virginia, honestly. And they lost by 6 in that game, but it was like a slower tempo. I think you're going to see Auburn. We know that what they like to do is try to get out that quick hitter 3. If they don't get that quick hit 3, they run offense. And I think you're going to see that focused on even more. It's not going to be just like run and gun nonstop. I think you're going to see them take the air out of the ball a little bit and not give up those quick misses and then letting UNC get out and do the same thing to them. So I think the under is a play here.
Also, all due respect to anybody out there that wants to take the bait, I feel like, look, anytime you have a coach on national TV mention how it's going to be an over game, I have a feeling I have no interest in playing that. I got a feeling Bruce Pro is going to throw something weird at everybody here. And again, 165 is high. It's interesting with Carolina. I mean, you mentioned Kobe White, how great he's been. The rich just get richer. I mean, we all know next year UNC is going to reload. Cole Anthony's going to choose UNC because they're going to need a point guard, and all the other teams he wants to pick have point guards already, and they're just going to reload. So it's going to be fun to watch this team and who stays, who goes. Carolina just keeps reloading. Hey, real quick, Reeks, how long for Roy Williams? How long do you think he's got left?
I don't know, man. Like, you find that extension.
Yeah,
he seems like obviously there's a health concern with his vertigo. We saw what happened in what game was that? Where he was at the Clemson game, right? Where he ended up missing the second half with that. So that's obviously always a concern. I don't know. Maybe another. Like, if he coached for another 5 years, would anybody be shocked?
No.
Like another, maybe even a little, like 5 to 7, something like that.
Yeah, the guy. I mean, I still see him out there recruiting, still doing his thing, and
he's still winning too. Like, it's not like they're consistently like a 6 seed and getting bounced in the first or second round too. Which, if that happened, then sure, maybe it'd be like 3 years. But he's out here typically getting 1 to 3 seeds and advancing to the second weekend, if not further.
Are you a big recruiting guy, Reeves, or no?
I mean, I typically stay up with it, but I don't. It's one of those, like, I don't try to. I don't deal with like, all right, they're down to this. They cut their list to 7 or anything like that. Sure. I just kind of keep an eye on it and see like where people are leaning, and if I hear something, then I kind of look into it. I mean, I still follow high school basketball just because I know and have people that I'm associated with that are coaches and kind of high leagues across the country. So obviously, like, hear from them, and it's more just in passing too, of just how's the season going, or talking about a random a game or something like that with them. But I'm not one that's out like trying to get like recruiting scoops or anything like that. Just sure. It's such a fluid market, and you never know what's going to happen in that. So
just gotta wait for the dust to settle, basically.
Yeah, just kind of wait for the dust to settle. wait. If it's coming down to obviously big names, you always keep an eye on because that's everybody knows with that. But it's like one of those. If it's down to like the last 2 or 3, okay, what makes sense for this player in terms of people leaving or systems or something like that.
Interesting, Riggs. You gave your opinion, kind of leaned to Auburn a little bit, at least from what. And I know you didn't say you liked Auburn, but the way you broke it down, you're starting to see some 4.5 show up here.
Yeah, I'm worried about Auburn. I'm worried about Auburn being tired, man. Like they had to play that extra day in the SEC tournament. UNC, obviously losing to Duke sucks, but you had an extra day rest. Really, extra 2 days because it was a Friday. So it's like, at some point, is that going to end up being a concern with Auburn?
Good point. 2 more games here, 2 final games. Virginia Tech and Duke. Duke 7 or 7.5, really depends where you look. Total 144.5. Look, Virginia Tech, you're going to do what UCF did. You're going to do what everyone else does that can do it. You're going to make Duke into a jump shooting team. I think you can stay in the game if you can do that. Also, can you rebound? Can you defensive rebound? We all know what Duke likes to do, pound the glass. We saw them obviously win the game the other night. There could have been a push on R.J. Barrett, but the truth of the matter was they got the rebound off the free throw miss and were able to find a way to score. And
everyone forgets they only got there because of an offensive rebound on the missed 3 by Zion. Delorier got that rebound.
Great point. So, again, I mean, if you can limit those 2 things, I think you're going to have a decent shot against Duke. I think the big story here, Outlaw out. That's going to be a big loss for Va-Tech. Not a deep team to begin with. That hurts. You're losing.
Is he officially ruled out yet?
I mean, judging by other cases, I mean, whether college football or college basketball, I know they're 2 different things, but generally when you see stuff like this the day before, I would imagine he's out. According to all the different reports, I mean, we're seeing cited for marijuana possession. Who knows what Buzz Williams will do here? Obviously, I think it's their discretion at this point, but I mean, how do you let the kid play, really? I don't know if it sets a great precedent, really. Just quickly, according to the search warrant, Blacksburg's police arrived at his apartment in reference to a narcotics violation. Who was the person that called the cops here? What a weak move, whoever that was. But again, that's just my opinion. I'm not saying anything. But either way, it's a big loss, Riggs, isn't it? I mean, anytime you have a team like Va-Tech and you lose a valuable piece, they don't have a lot of bench players as it is. You look at, though, at the end of the day, I think they have kind of a tonic that can bother Duke. We all know that Duke's inability from 3 really hurts them at times. Va-Tech's just going to make them shoot threes. But I think deep down, Duke will find a way. Barrett and Williamson are just better than everyone else. But 7 is a lot of points. What do you think here, Riggs?
Yeah, so I'm not – Virginia Tech's defensive style, they give up – they want people to shoot threes, but it's also predicated on being able to put a pressure in the backcourt enough so if it's then broken, they can sag. I think in this game it's more – Duke can probably just get the ball to Zion. Like if they – Virginia Tech needs to find a way to apply pressure and sag before the ball gets to Zion for him to attack, because we didn't see that in the first game. Obviously, with Zion not playing, that's what Virginia Tech's weird in their defense. When you typically see like that press and trap, you assume there not a lot of threes are shot, but they do an excellent job of rotation and then sagging. So then you have to shoot those threes. But again, you got a guy in Zion that's an excellent ball handler, an excellent passer. To where if you can kind of get a quick hit, almost like think about it almost like hockey or soccer, where you kind of get let's say you get the ball to Jones and it's a quick kind of diagonal pass to, let's say, Reddish, and then Zion's cutting the other way and kind of reverse course back to him. Then it's a quick 2-on-1 with Zion, and Zion wins that fight 9 out of 10 times. So that's, to me, because the question with Duke is always, are they going to be able to shoot the ball? So you have to try to figure out something else, just because every game's that, right? So I agree. I think Duke got their scare. I think they're due for another scare in this tournament, but I don't think it's going to be back-to-back. 7.5 does feel like a lot just because of, conference foes. I think Buzz Williams is an excellent, excellent coach. Virginia Tech can bother them. I'm not saying, it's impossible or anything like that, but this almost has the makings of Duke coming out and just trying to kick some ass to prove a point.
Yeah, it kind of reminds you a bit of that Syracuse game. I know that was the Syracuse game I'm talking about on February 23rd, where they didn't have Zion, but everyone kind of thought, oh, it's Syracuse, in the dome. Syracuse going to hang here. And then they found a way to kind of separate themselves and, win by double digits. Look, I like Virginia Tech. I do think the Outlaw thing hurts more than you think. I mean, this is a team that is 320 in bench minutes with Outlaw. I mean, he's a starter. I mean, he's a guy that plays a lot.
I'm not sure how skewed that is because you didn't have Justin Robinson for that.
True. Good point. Either way, though, they are, this is going to be tough. But, I found it interesting, to watch how UCF guarded Duke. I mean, did you notice, Riggs, basically, they just told Trey Jones that you can do whatever you want.
So what they did, and they're one of the few teams that are able to do this, is they moved B.J. Taylor onto Zion Williamson.
Sure.
So you had a smaller guard on Zion to kind of get up in him and try to pester him if you put the ball on the ground. And they did. They just left Trey Jones because then they put Taco Fall right underneath the rim. And so you had that kind of that inside-outside double coverage, almost like in football where you put the safety over the top. That's essentially what they did.
Fascinating.
But it's rare because there's not a lot of teams, obviously, with someone like Taco Fall that not only with Taco Fall, but you have a kind of stronger, smaller guard in B.J. Taylor. So you kind of have to have that right mix of rim protection and strength at a guard spot to do that defense with Zion. I don't know how many teams kind of have that. So I don't think Virginia Tech will be able to just completely leave Trey Jones or Jordan Goldwire like UCF did. But it's definitely something that I wouldn't be surprised to see again at some point in this tournament.
Trey Jones, 23%.
And it's weird, man. Like, he doesn't have a bad shot. Like, he didn't enter college as a known bad shooter. When you watch him, it's not like there's a hitch. It's not like his elbow's not flaring out. There's nothing weird about a shot. And what's even weirder is he's excellent from the mid-range. Trey Jones, when he gets the ball and takes that one or two dribbles, free throw line pull-up, he's probably shooting like 70%.
That's a good point. It's fascinating how he's been so.
I think it's just a mental point. It's just a mental thing at this point. Which that and then sometimes shooting slumps go on for a long time, and you see like that
prime example.
Yeah, you see that 1 year of bad shooting, and then who knows? He could be a 36% shooter in the NBA the next year, and you're like, the hell happened to him last year?
Real quick, Riggs, with Zion Williamson, I talked to you, I think, at the beginning of the season about him, and you were actually pretty, obviously pretty high. Of course, you'd be pretty high. I feel like with him, do you agree that like worst case scenario, he's like Blake Griffin, and best case scenario, he's the best player in the league? Is that a safe assumption? Is he any worse than that?
I mean, I think there's definitely like a worst case scenario because you're talking
how could he even be that bad? Like, would it just be where he just never develops a shot and he just gets overweight and he just is that?
Yeah, there's all those factors. Who knows? I think the floor is a little lower than Blake Griffin because again, the floor would then be a perennial all-star. Which hell, I mean, I'd sign up for that any day of the week if you're a number one overall pick. So there's a little bit of concern with that, but I think he's going to be fine. Don't get me wrong. I think you absolutely take him number one. I think he's going to be worth it. I think he's worth the hype. I don't know what his peak is because it's so rare to see a player like him, man. And everything about him is easy to like and easy to watch. Like, the dude gets the game. It's not like he just puts his head down and goes. Like, you can tell he is a smart basketball player. He's got excellent passing. I know he can improve on his right hand. But again, you're talking about a legit freshman in college.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. One more game here, and obviously this is an interesting one because Riggs, you're a Kentucky alum. Is that correct?
Yeah, Kentucky grad.
So let's see here because I got to tell you, I'm going to pull out my my medical hat here. I don't think there's any way because you watch him plays. I think it's all a game here. Look, he's a guy to catch, for God's sakes. He's
Cast is off, though, which is like –
yeah, come on, Reed. I mean, you think he's really going to be at full strength here?
No, that's the thing. But if you can get 15 to 20 minutes out of him,
it could be the difference.
Similar to what happened to Kentucky last year in the Sweet 16, where Kansas State didn't have Dean Wade, and he came back and played like 12, 15 minutes against Kentucky.
True. That's a good point. I can see it.
That's PJ Washington's the key. I don't like the line in this game until we find out about PJ Washington.
Yeah, we have the current number here at 3, which look, you're going to give me 3 points here with Houston. Without PJ Washington,
right now, I'll take Houston.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought. You look at real quick here. He's against Wofford. Look, we all know the elephant in the room. Fletcher McGee, he couldn't hit water in a boat. It was just that simple.
I think it's even more than that, because I went back and rewatched the game because I wanted to see kind of what happened with Fletcher McGee. Tyler Hero defended his ass off.
Yeah,
I ended up counting. There were only really like 2, maybe 3 true clean looks for McGee. So it's not like you look at the 0 for 12. Don't get me wrong. That's an aberration, obviously. But the 0 for 12 makes more sense when you see the defense that kind of happened with it. You know, when everyone just keeps saying 0 for 12, I think people think you just picture him missing like the one from the corner where he was wide open, where there was a defensive breakdown. But other than that, like almost everything he shot was contested.
Houston, a terrific defensive team. Calvin Sampson's done a great job. Really terrific stuff. I mean, number 1 in 3-point defense in the country, 12th in defensive efficiency. Just terrific stuff all year. We all know Kentucky. Kentucky and Tennessee both have issues against a 3-point shot. Houston, a good offense, not a great offense. Again, I think we're all going to have to really kind of just dig for some info and try to get something on PJ Washington. I think at this point, look, if PJ plays and he's healthy and he gets back there, look, I took Kentucky at 12-1 about a month ago to win this tournament. I obviously you can't foresee PJ Washington getting hurt, and it hasn't hurt him yet, but hopefully he gets back in there and can give them something. I don't love Houston's bigs. Brady's okay. He's nothing great.
But what they do, and this is where PJ Washington is important, is on defense. There's 2 things they do on defense. What makes Washington important is Houston runs a double with big to big. So they send the other big to double in the post. And that's rare. You typically see the dive down from a guard. So Washington is both an excellent passer out of the post and a good shooter. So if you're doubling Reed Travis, that means you're leaving PJ Washington, who's like a 45% 3-point shooter on the year, or he's PJ Washington at the rim. If you double PJ Washington, you're leaving Reed Travis for a dump down pass. That's a whole hell of a lot different than if that's Nick Richards, EJ Montgomery.
This is the only game where we have some really important info that we don't have. And look, I think at this point, I'll take the 3, but I think Kentucky finds a way to win. This is the game that I have little interest in betting, really. I think if Washington plays, I have a whole nother opinion. He's that important. Reegs, I have a few questions for you before we go, but let me ask you, do you have your favorite? What's your favorite bet out of all these? You have one?
The smartest bet is probably the under in Auburn, North Carolina, but that's not my favorite because I want to cheer for points because that has potential for 200 points, and I'd be completely cool with that. And I don't want to lose money if that happens. But I like that play a lot. Probably, I'll tell you what, probably the over in the Virginia game. Or Purdue, Tennessee. The over in Purdue, Tennessee.
I think we've kind of gotten some good ones here with some of these totals. I just think some are just a bit too low for some reason. Riggs, before we go, we wanted to ask you something about Kentucky. Brad Calipari, who I've been kind of fixated with. I find him to be fascinating. For some reason, I watch Fortnite when he plays it, and I just find him to be fascinating for some reason. He kind of reminds me of me, except like, I don't know, he's better looking, and I don't know, he just kind of has that personality. But what's the story with him? I mean, is he what's he going to wear tomorrow?
I know.
What's with him?
I love that this became a thing, and I love that he's playing into it. Like he wore the shirt. I forget what game it was, but he wore the one shirt that just said pretending, or I remember when I cared, or something like that. He's almost like trolling everybody with what his outfits.
Have you ever watched him during the game? Like, yeah, he's great with like the refs and stuff. He's funny.
Like he's different, obviously, because obviously he's John's kid, but he's been around this program growing up. So he's always been around what it's like, I guess, to be a Kentucky basketball player. And I think that's kind of lost. Like, he is a Kentucky basketball player. I think he's going to end up wearing something Kentucky tomorrow. I think you'll see like the retro jacket.
Did he wear the jacket one time?
Yeah, I think you're going to see something like that, like the retro varsity jacket.
Sure.
But I think it's great. Like, again, like the team loves him. Like, I don't want people to think like he's just on the team because he's Calipari's kid and everyone hates him. Like, he is beloved by every single teammate that he's ever had. And like, he's not a distraction, which I know some older heads tend to bring up or something like that. Like, just a college kid having a good time playing college basketball.
Yeah,
he's redshirting this year, so it's not even like he can, like, you know, you can sit there and be like, well, he needs to be practicing his game or whatever. Like, he's a redshirt.
No, he's really. I love watching him during the game. He's funny, man. He does some really funny shit. Let me ask you, and I'm not saying he's in the mob. If he was in the mob, what would his mob name be?
God. I mean, it'd have to be Junior.
Bratty Backboards or something?
I mean, it'd have to be Junior, right, with his dad. It'd have to be something off of that.
True, like a Junior Gotti kind of thing. Yeah,
It'd have to be something like that.
I never really thought of that, actually. I actually made that point. I guess I never thought of him being the kind of the son.
But. Yeah, because if you'd assume you'd have to play off of Calipari being the leader.
Yeah, good point. One more thing, Riggs, and you can find Riggs at barstoolsports.com. Does some great work. You wrote the article about Lou Williams, and I've lived in Philadelphia. I've lived in the area my whole life. I heard about this story initially when it happened.
Yeah, it was like 2011. It's like circulating around again, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And look, Lou Williams is. I remember when he was here. I remember I would see him everywhere. He was always out at. You know, he'd go to concerts, and he was real close with Meek Mill and kind of Meek's group. And look, I know where this happened. I mean, it's a tough neighborhood. It's up near Simon Gratz High School up in Northwest Philadelphia. This is a terrific story, and I'm glad you wrote about it. I'm glad people are hearing about it. It's a fascinating story, really. I mean, you go from kind of a really, really bad situation to a good situation. I always liked Lou Williams. I always had hoped that at one point the Sixers would try to bring him back. I think he's one of the great six men that we have. Real good story, and you can read about it over at barstoolsports.com. Riggs writes all sorts of great articles. Riggs, always appreciate you coming on. Great stuff. And let me ask you before we go, who wins the NCAA tournament right now?
I'm still sticking with Virginia. They were my preseason pick. I have them 18-1.
Okay.
They were my pick when the brackets came out. They haven't done anything yet for me to say otherwise. I'll just stick with it until they lose.
Sure.
But you can, I mean, shit, at this point you can make a case for
really anyone, right?
8 teams, 10, sure. Yeah, right, to win another 4 games.
What odds do you give the guy with the perfect bracket? Which, by the way, the fact that they're interviewing that guy is kind of lame. I mean, look, there's one team above a 5 seed. It's not that cool.
But it's the fact that he's the only one to have it.
Do you think he does it? No. Right?
Yeah. Oh, no. There's no
way.
It's 0.0000001%.
Sure.
I mean, the fact that you get it to this point, which I almost think it's crazier that you have a perfect bracket. Like, I know people say, well, it should be easier to have a perfect bracket with the big names all advancing and things like that.
The fact he didn't pick any upsets.
But I think it's almost the opposite, where everyone looks to pick upsets.
I didn't end up reading this article. Like, is he in like any of those contests or at least will win something?
I don't know. I haven't read it yet either. I've seen the headline and saw, because it's a guy in Columbus, Ohio.
It'd be interesting if he doesn't like get anything out of this.
Right. He's just like in his family pool or something. That'd be even better. Like, he's in like the $5 pool with like 6 people.
I don't know. I heard he was from Columbus, Ohio, and then he said he's a Michigan fan, and I don't know.
I mean, that's not shocking. Like, there are a lot of people.
I guess he had to move. Maybe he's there for work.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that move, from, because it's not far. I mean, Columbus to Ann Arbor is what, 3 hours, I think. So it's not like an outrageous move.
A 40-year-old neuropsychologist.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't think he needs to win any money.
No, I think it'll just.
I think he's pretty well set off.
Reegs, great stuff, man. Follow Reegs on Twitter at Barstool Reegs, barstoolsports.com. Good stuff, Reegs. Maybe we'll chat with you again for the Elite Eight. Have a good night, man. Appreciate it.
Man, appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thanks, buddy. Barstool Reegs joining us. Always, look, I mean, what can we say about Reegs? I mean, just terrific info. Always is a guy that brings it. Always gives us great information, really knows the game well. And look, there's not a lot of people that can do what Reegs just did, give an opinion for every game. That just sets me apart. I mean, I bring on people that are going to give you the best picks, the best info. We're not going to talk about how we get money on every game, but we can't tell you about one player. You want information, Reegs is always going to give it to you. Terrific writer, does some great things. One of my favorite people to talk to. That's that, guys. Sweet 16. Great stuff. As always, again, thanks to Reegs for coming on. Big man, who is in your personal Final Four? I have the Duke Blue Devils. I have the Gonzaga Bulldogs. I have the Kentucky Wildcats. And I have the Virginia Cavaliers. So, yeah, that's what I have there. Texas Tech should go to Maryland. Texas Tech coach should go to Maryland. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Look, he wants it not to be a lateral move. That would be a other way move. That would be a negative move. No offense, Steve. I know you're a Maryland fan, but again, that job, I don't know if it attracts as much as it used to. It's still a good job, but again, I think he's going to go to a big-time school. But again, guys, thanks for watching. As always, make sure you hit the like and comment buttons. Make sure you subscribe if you're new to the channels. I have some great MLB stuff up. Did an AL and NL preview. We'll have some good stuff. Should be on Periscope a little bit later. If you care to watch, we'll go over some baseball stuff and more. As always, thanks for watching and appreciate you tuning in. Have a great night. Enjoy the Sweet 16.